Negative speakers, please rise. Senator Quesada.
Thank you again. That is Senator Quesada. Quesada. Sounds like quesadilla. That's how you can remember it. Seeing as this is the final round of TOC and it will be seen by thousands, I need to give a short but critical message before my speech. We must acknowledge that this year, only 5% of students in congressional debate at the TOC were Latino, and these numbers were similarly abysmal for Black students and remain low in other formats like PF. I now sit here as someone who by chance became the only Latino congressperson in this finals round, and it's simply unacceptable in the 21st century. As an activity that prides itself on being a platform for discussions, we don't hear Black and Latino stories because we aren't represented, and that's because of systemic racism across all levels of the activity and in education. We need to make sure that we provide ways for Black and Latino students to access debate resources and coaching. And we as competitors and judges must recognize our privileges and do our best to make this activity inclusive. Too many Black and Latino people have quit because of racism on Discord servers or secretive group chats, and it must come to an end. As we continue this finals round, keep in mind your own biases and let's work together to make debate an activity for all, not for some. 5% cannot be the norm. With that being said, I'll start my speech on my first word, assuming all judges are ready. In morning hour, I mentioned that because TOC is 5% Latino, it's highly likely that there will be no Latinos to speak on Latin America in finals. Well, I guess I was wrong because I broke the ceiling. Senator Bake mentions Honduras in her speech, and tons of senators have talked about the people of Latin America. But guess what? I don't just see them as other people because I am Honduran. I am the son of the immigrant senators are mentioning. And I noticed that every senator on both the AF and NEG, such as Senator Rubis and Hassan Ali, have only explained to you that my home country is full of crime without telling you why that's the case. Honduras didn't magically become poor. And that's the importance of diverse perspectives in debate. Let me spend the next minutes explaining. Fail this bill because it lets the US control Latin American voters. Senator Biram does a discussion on dollar diplomacy, but doesn't go into detail about how it materializes. So let's start with election tampering. Section 1 specifies that funding will go to USA, which as an agency is as honest as a murderer wearing an "I love to help" people sign. Senators Peng and Kaiser try to come up with fairy tales of how America the philanthropist is going to save us Latinos. What she and the other AF senators don't consider are incentives. No one has asked themselves, why does USAID exist? The Haiti Action Network in 2016 calls USAID the friendly face of imperialism because it's used to disguise capitalist practices under a face of kindness. Jacobin magazine in 2017 reveals that even top USAID officials like Andrew Batsos admits that USAID's mission has nothing to do with development, but rather political intervention on behalf of US interests. Take the example of Haiti, where USAID has selectively chosen to distribute resources in politically neutral areas to undermine existing community programs and attempt to delegitimize the demands of left-wing Congress people. By having temporary aid from a very capitalist nation, many desperate and poor Haitian voters associate the nation with helpfulness, like a carrot on a stick. In addition, many camps were strategically placed in town centers so that people could not protest their actions as it was taken up. These actions over time have helped the US turn many voters to the right without having to intervene militarily. Take dictator Pinochet of Chile, who murdered LGBT people and was supported by US foreign aid tampering. The Haiti Action Network source is also very good because it explains that USAID picks and chooses numbers, like the one Senator Rubis tried to use, to make it look like they're doing good. He says infant mortality dropped, but doesn't explain how other variables like crime are still on the rise. Passing this bill means expanding programs that only serve US interests. Senators Rubis and Kaiser try to tell you that we need to tackle the root cause, but poverty and crime is the stem, not the root. The root is US intervention that caused all this in the first place. And I'm the first senator who's mentioned that at all, probably because of my background. Second, fail to prevent US multinational takeover. Since European empires first found important resources in the Americas, plundered and colonized our lands, the history of the region's countries has been the theft of our natural wealth. That is why in Latin America, multinational companies are like termites that come in and steal all of the resources without getting back. This bill's open a can of worms. Section 2 specifies 40% of funds must go to SMEs, and Jeffrey Voltmeyer of St. Mary's University, Halifax explains that due to US capitalist twisted motives, US-based companies exploit these laws to establish themselves in LATAM. So how do large multinationals bypass the limits of SME laws? Companies promote smaller SMEs as suppliers or contractors, which is a loophole to get around the employment and size restrictions by saying that it's not really part of the company. A 2016 report by Latin American researcher Thomas Skidmore finds that one of the reasons for devastation in Honduras is U.S. multinationals. Companies like Dole and Chiquita come into our nation and destroy our indigenous lands, take farmlands, and deforest, and most of the benefits don't even go to regular citizens, just oligarchs. The few jobs that are provided provide starving wages and horrific working conditions, including companies that have murdered feminist activists like Berta Cáceres to stop her from exposing their actions. So when Senator Landsman tries to tell you that U.S. imperialism will help women, I frankly feel offended, because any of my family members in Honduras will tell you U.S. aid has only elevated the fear they feel. Passing this bill targets me, my family members in Honduras, and tells us our voices don't matter, only those of white men in Washington. So fail it.